The rain had started before sunset on Vera Lane, falling in slow sheets across the small human colony at the edge of the southern plains. The sound of thunder rolled through the metal roofs like a tired drum. Inside his modest cabin, Ethan Hale sat by a dim light, adjusting a piece of machinery on his workbench. He was a quiet man and engineer by trade, once part of the fleet that built the colony's power grids. Now he lived alone, repairing equipment for miners and settlers who rarely visited him, except when something broke. Ethan liked the silence. It was simple, predictable, and calm. He didn't mind being the forgotten man of the frontier, but that night, something felt different. The air seemed heavier, the shadows longer, and when the wind blew through the cracks of the metal walls, it carried a faint, unfamiliar sound, like a soft whisper or maybe a breath. Then came the knock. It wasn't loud, just a gentle tap, followed by another, as if whoever stood outside was unsure if they should be there. Ethan frowned. He wasn't expecting anyone. The storm was too strong for casual visits, and the last transport had already left for the capital. He wiped his hands on a rag and opened the door. A flash of lightning revealed her his neighbor, Lyra, the alien widow who lived in the small dome house next to his field. She stood on the porch, rain dripping from her silver-tinted hair, her violet eyes catching the light like a reflection of the storm. She wore a long gray cloak soaked through, and in her hands she held a small metallic device the size of a human heart. "Ethan Hale," she said softly, her accent carrying the smooth rhythm of the Volari tongue. "I need your help." Ethan blinked in surprise. He had seen Lyra around the settlement before, always distant, polite, and quiet. She was one of the few Volari who stayed after the peace treaty. Her husband had died during the last border conflict, and since then, she had lived alone. The humans respected her space, but they also avoided her. Too many still carried the scars of war. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked. Lyra looked around nervously before stepping inside. The moment she crossed the threshold, the smell of rain and cold metal filled the room. She placed the device on the table and whispered, "It's broken. I need it repaired. You're the only one who understands both human and Volari tech." Ethan leaned closer. The device pulsed faintly with blue light under its cracked casing. He didn't recognize the model, but the energy pattern looked advanced, something well beyond civilian use. "This isn't a simple tool," he said carefully. "Where did you get it?" "It was my husband's," she replied. "He built it before he died. It's important." Her voice wavered slightly, but her eyes held steady. There was more to it, he could tell. But he didn't press. He motioned for her to sit while he examined it. His tools clicked and hummed as he opened the casing. Inside, alien crystal cores hummed beside human wiring, an impossible hybrid. Whoever made this knew both sciences deeply. As he worked, he felt her gaze on him. Lyra sat quietly by the wall, her cloak still damp, her posture graceful but tense. The flicker of the desk lamp traced her face, delicate but strong, with faint markings that glowed softly beneath her skin when the light touched them. She wasn't like other Volari he'd met. There was something deeply human about her calmness, as if grief had carved away all fear. After a while, Ethan spoke without looking up. "This circuit's interface is military grade. If anyone finds out I'm touching this, I'll be arrested." "I know," she said quietly, "but I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." He glanced up. Her expression was steady, but full of quiet pain. "What is it really?" "It's a stabilizer," she said after a pause. "It regulates energy fields, the kind that form near dark matter fissures. My husband believed the mining drills humans use are making them worse. He built this to stop the planet from collapsing." Ethan froze. He had heard rumors of fissures near the southern ridge, unstable rifts where gravity twisted. The miners called them the ghosts of the war. But if what she said was true, the whole colony could be in danger. "Why not tell the council?" he asked. "They won't listen to me," Lyra replied bitterly. "They never listen to Volari." The rain outside grew louder. Ethan sat back in his chair, studying the alien widow in silence. Every logical thought told him to refuse. Helping her could brand him a collaborator. He'd lose his license, maybe his freedom. But when he saw how tightly she clutched the small pendant around her neck, a charm made of polished glass and faded metal, he couldn't bring himself to say no. "What do you need me to do?" he asked finally. Her eyes softened, a faint relief passing over her face. Just repair the energy core. I can handle the rest. He nodded. I'll see what I can do. Hours passed as Ethan worked. The storm raged on, turning the night into endless gray noise. He soldered microlines, realigned cores, and replaced fractured wires with human substitutes. Occasionally, Lyra helped by handing him tools, her movements careful and precise. She never spoke unless necessary. Around midnight, the power flickered. Ethan looked up, and for a brief second, their eyes met across the desk. Her expression was unreadable, calm, yet filled with something deep, like gratitude wrapped in sorrow. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was heavy with meaning neither dared to voice. When the final panel clicked back into place, the device emitted a low hum. The blue light returned, steady, strong, alive, then exhaled. It's working. Lyra approached, touching the metal surface gently. Her fingers trembled. Thank you, she whispered. You may have saved more lives than you know. Ethan frowned. You said it stabilizes energy fields, but this thing looks like it can emit a pulse too. What happens when it's used? She hesitated. It must be activated near a fissure. It will draw energy and seal it, but it could also expose whoever triggers it, so it's dangerous. Yes, she admitted. That's why I need to be the one to do it. He shook his head. You can't go alone. The security drones patrol those sectors. Her lips curved in a faint, sad smile. I've faced worse. Ethan didn't reply. He looked at the rain beating against the window. In the distance, the storm flashed again, lighting the horizon with brief silver light. After a moment, Lyra rose, taking the repaired device. I'll go at dawn. Wait, Ethan said. You can't go now, it's suicide. She stopped by the door, her cloak hanging heavily from her shoulders. You've already risked enough by helping me. Don't add more. He stepped closer. Lyra, you said this thing could save both our people. Means it's not just your burden. Her eyes met his. And yet you are still human, Ethan Hale. You will be judged by your own. He smiled faintly. Then let them judge. The first time, she looked at him not as a stranger, but as someone she could trust. The storm roared again, and for a brief instant, it felt like the entire planet held its breath. She lowered her gaze. Then, meet me at the southern ridge tomorrow. If you truly mean that. Before he could answer, she was disappearing into the rain like a shadow swallowed by the night. Ethan stood at the door for a long time, watching the lights of her house flicker faintly across the field. He knew what he'd just agreed to was madness. He didn't know the full truth behind her request, or what danger lay ahead. But something, deep inside him, something human and stubborn, refused to let her face it alone. When he finally turned back to his workbench, the repaired device's faint blue glow still pulsed softly as if waiting. Outside, the storm began to fade, and the first quiet light of dawn crept over the horizon, painting the clouds silver. Somewhere in the distance, a low tremor rolled across the land, the unmistakable sound of a fissure awakening. Ethan stared into the pale morning light and whispered to himself. So this is how it begins, and it had indeed begun the choice. The danger and the bond that would change both their worlds forever. Morning came with a pale light that stretched across the plains of Virelanine. The rain had stopped, but the clouds still hung low like heavy smoke. The world looked tired, quiet, and damp. Ethan Hale stood outside his cabin, the repaired device wrapped in a protective cloth inside his pack. The night had been long and restless. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lyra's face in the doorway. Her calm voice asking for help that might destroy them both. He knew what he had promised her, to meet at the southern ridge, near the restricted zone where the fissures had begun to appear. No human was allowed there. The military had declared it unsafe months ago. But he also knew that if Lyra was right and the fissures were spreading, and ignoring them could mean the end of the colony. He tightened his jacket and started walking. The air was cold and thin, the kind that made every breath sting a little. The path was rough and overgrown. Once this had been a transport route used by miners. Now it was abandoned, with only the sound of wind echoing through the empty fields. By midday, the first fissure came into view. It wasn't a hole in the ground, it was something far stranger. The air itself seemed to bend and twist like light passing through broken glass. Small stones near it floated an inch above the soil, trapped in invisible waves. Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine. Then he saw her. Lyra stood by a rock outcrop, her cloak fluttering in the wind. The faint silver glow on her skin shimmered under the weak sunlight. She turned when she heard his steps and gave a small nod. "You came," she said quietly. "I said I would." Lyra looked toward the fissure. "It's growing faster than I feared." The readings doubled overnight. Ethan followed her gaze. "How do we stop it?" She knelt beside the ground and pulled a scanning rod from her satchel. "We place the device at the fissure's edge. It must synchronize with the energy waves before we trigger the pulse." Ethan crouched beside her. "And then what happens?" "The energy will collapse inward and seal the rift," she explained. "But whoever activates it must stay close until the process finishes. The field is unstable, too dangerous to control from a distance." He frowned. "That's suicide." She didn't answer. Her expression remained calm, but there was something final in her eyes. Ethan shook his head. "No, we'll find another way." "There is no other way," Lyra said gently. "My husband died building this device. He believed in saving lives even if it meant losing his own. I intend to honor that." He stared at her, feeling both admiration and frustration. "You think you're the only one who can make sacrifices? You're wrong." Lyra met his eyes. "And what would you lose, Ethan Hale?" "Everything," he said simply. "But maybe that's worth it." Before either could speak again, a distant hum filled the air. It was faint at first, then grew louder, rhythmic sound like mechanical wings slicing through the wind. Lyra's eyes widened. "Drones," she whispered. Ethan turned. Over the ridge, 3 black shapes appeared, flying low and steady military patrols. "They must have detected their energy readings. We need to move," he said quickly. They ran across the uneven ground toward the fissure's center. The air shimmered stronger here, distorting colors and sound. Ethan helped Lyra set the stabilizer on the ground. It glowed faintly, lines of blue light running across its surface as it synced with the readings. The drones drew closer, scanning beams slicing through the fog. Lyra adjusted the core alignment, her hands moving quickly, her voice steady. "Keep them distracted," she said. Ethan looked around. "With what? A rock?" She didn't answer, just handed him a small emitter. "Activate this when I tell you." The first drone descended, its sensors flashing red as it locked on their position. Ethan's heart pounded. He crouched behind a broken mining platform and watched the drone hover above. "Lyra." A voice crackled from its speaker, cold and mechanical. "Unauthorized presence detected in restricted zone. Identify yourselves immediately." Lyra ignored it, her focus locked on the device. Ethan could see the stabilizer's glow intensifying, a hum deepening like a heartbeat. The voice repeated louder this time. "Surrender your equipment or force will be used." "Now," Lyra shouted. Ethan hit the emitter. A burst of static light flashed in the air, jamming the drone's sensors for a brief second. Lyra slammed her palm on the stabilizer's surface. The pulse activated. A deep, resonant wave spread outward, shaking the ground. The fissure blazed with blinding light. Ethan stumbled, covering his eyes. The air felt electric, heavy, almost alive. "Lyra?" he yelled. "It's overloading." She didn't move. The energy spiraled around her, threads of blue and white wrapping her figure like ribbons of light. The ground beneath the fissure began to close, folding into itself with a thunderous roar. The drones lost control, spinning wildly before crashing into the rocks. Ethan ran forward, fighting the pull of the collapsing air. He reached her just as the stabilizer exploded in a final burst of light. Then everything went dark. When Ethan woke, his head throbbed. Dust filled his lungs. The world was silent except for the faint hiss of wind. He lay half buried under pieces of shattered metal. The sky above him was pale and still, the storm clouds gone. He pushed himself up, coughing. Lyra, he called. No answer. He staggered through the debris, searching. The fissure was going to completely sealed, the ground smooth as glass. The stabilizer's remains lay scattered, its glow extinguished. He found Lyra a few meters away, unconscious but breathing. Ethan knelt beside her and touched her shoulder gently. Her skin felt cool but steady, her pulse strong. "Hey," he said softly. "Wake up." Her eyes opened slowly. For a moment, she looked lost, confused. Then recognition returned, and she whispered, "It worked?" He nodded. "The fissure's gone." A faint smile touched her lips. "Then we did it." Before he could answer, the sound of engines echoed across the sky. 2 dropships approached, their insignia clear United Colony Military. Ethan's heart sank. "We have to move." But it was too late. The dropships landed nearby, and soldiers in dark armor poured out. One of them shouted, "Hands up! Don't move." Lyra tried to stand, but Ethan pulled her back gently. "Let me talk to them." He raised his hands as the soldiers surrounded them. "Wait, we were trying to stabilize the fissure." The commander, a tall man with sharp eyes, looked at the destroyed equipment. "You violated a restricted zone and activated alien technology without authorization. You're under arrest." Ethan tried to explain, but the man cut him off. "You're lucky we don't shoot you on sight." He took the broken stabilizer and loaded it into a container. Lyra remained silent, her expression calm even as they bound her wrists. Ethan noticed the faint light still glowing under her skin. It hadn't faded completely, as they were escorted toward the ship. She leaned toward him and whispered, "Do not tell them what it truly does." He frowned. "Why?" "Because they will weaponize it," she said quietly. "They always do." Ethan's chest tightened. "Then what do we do?" "Wait," she murmured. "The truth will find us soon enough." The next day, Ethan sat inside a holding cell at the central base. Outside the glass wall, soldiers moved in silence, their faces unreadable. He had been questioned for hours, accused of treason and collaboration. They called Lyra a security threat, called her a savior. No one believed him. Through the small window, he could see the horizon glowing faintly blue, the same color as the stabilizer's pulse. It meant the energy waves were calming. Maybe the fissures were sealing themselves. Hours passed before the door opened. Lyra entered, escorted by 2 guards. She looked pale but unafraid. The commander followed, holding a tablet. "The fissure has stabilized," the commander said flatly. "Your actions may have prevented a collapse, but you still broke protocol. You'll remain under investigation." Lyra spoke for the first time. "Then at least record the truth that a human chose to stand beside a Valari when others would have turned away." The commander hesitated, but said nothing. He motioned for the guards to take them away. As they walked down the corridor, Ethan whispered, "They'll never understand, will they?" "Maybe not today," she replied softly, "but someday they will." Outside, the wind howled again, carrying the scent of rain over the plains. The sky shimmered faintly, peaceful for the first time in months. Ethan glanced at Lyra as they were led into separate cells. Their eyes met through the glass wall, a silent promise between 2 people from different worlds. Somewhere deep inside him, Ethan knew this wasn't the end. The storm had only begun to calm, but the real change, the one Lyra had brought to his life, was just beginning. The sun set quietly over Viralanine, turning the sky into a field of gold and blue. The colony had returned to its routine, but the air still carried whispers about what had happened near the southern ridge. Some said it was a mining accident. Others believed it was a failed weapon test. No one mentioned the truth. Ethan Hale sat in his small cabin again, just as he had weeks before, but nothing felt the same. The table where he once repaired old tools now held the memories of something far greater, the night he helped seal a wound in the planet itself. His name had been cleared after several long hearings, though he was still watched closely by the military. Lyra had disappeared soon after the investigations ended. He didn't know where she went. Some said she was deported to her homeworld. Others believed she escaped into the wastelands. Ethan didn't believe either story. Deep inside, he felt she was alive, somewhere beyond the horizon. Every night, he looked out across the plains and thought of her voice, her calm words, her courage. She had changed the way he saw the universe. She had changed him, Then one night a familiar knock came at his door. The sound froze him. It was soft, steady, and unmistakable. Ethan turned slowly, his heart racing. When he opened the door, a cold gust of wind entered, carrying the scent of distant rain. And there she was, Lyra, standing beneath the stars, her silver-tinted hair flowing gently, her violet eyes glowing faintly in the dark. For a moment neither spoke. The silence was full of memories and unspoken things. "You're alive," Ethan finally said. "I told you the truth would find us." She replied with a small smile. She stepped inside. Her movements quiet and graceful as always, but something about her was different. The markings on her skin glowed faintly with soft blue light, pulsing like a heartbeat beneath the surface. Ethan noticed immediately. "You're changed." "Yes," she said softly. "And so are you." He frowned. "What do you mean?" Lyra placed her hand on the table and looked at him seriously. When the stabilizer exploded, it didn't only seal the fissure. It released a wave that connected us. Our energy signatures fused. The device was built to work with two minds, not one. My husband designed it for unity, not war. When you touched it, the link was formed. Ethan stared at her, unsure what to say. "A link? You mean our life forces are joined?" she finished. "If one of us dies, the balance that holds the fissures closed will break. The planet's core will become unstable again." He went silent. The truth sank in like a heavy stone. "So, we're keeping this planet alive," she nodded. "Together." Ethan exhaled slowly, rubbing his forehead. "That explains why I've been feeling strange. I thought it was just exhaustion. It's the connection," she said. "Your energy and mine, human and Valeria, synchronized now. It's why the planet's surface has remained calm. The field adapts through us." He stared at her glowing markings again. "And you came here to tell me this?" "Yes," she said, but there was more in her tone, something deeper. "And to ask something more." He felt his chest tighten. "Another request?" She nodded slightly. "The one that will change everything again." He waited. The air between them felt charged, almost alive, as if the planet itself was listening. Lyra spoke slowly. "My people on the Valari homeworld have sent a message. They want to understand what happened here. They don't trust humans, but they trust me. They asked me to return to explain how the fissures were healed. I cannot go alone." "You want me to go with you?" Ethan said quietly. "Yes," she said. "You are the other half of the link. If I leave without you, the connection may weaken. The planet might fall apart again. But more than that," she paused, her eyes softening, "they need to see that humans are not destroyers. They need to see what unity can look like." Ethan sat down slowly. The thought of leaving the colony, of leaving everything familiar behind, felt unreal. "If I go, they'll call me a deserter again. Maybe worse." "Then let them," Lyra said gently. "You've already been called worse things and survived." He laughed softly. "That's true," she smiled. But behind it, he saw exhaustion, the kind that came from years of loss and burden. "I know it's a lot to ask," she continued. "But if we can show them what we achieved together, maybe there will never be another war like the one that took my husband. Maybe peace will have a face both sides can trust." Ethan looked down at his hands. They were rough, covered in scars and grease, built for fixing machines, not shaping history. But Lyra's words reminded him of something simple yet powerful, that one person could still make a difference. Even at the edge of two worlds, he looked up. "When do we leave?" Her eyes brightened, the faint glow of relief mixing with gratitude. "Tomorrow morning. A transport ship will meet us at the valley's edge. It's small and unregistered, quiet enough to pass the patrols." He nodded. "Then I'll be ready." Lyra hesitated for a moment, then reached out her hand. He took it without thinking. For a second, a faint pulse of blue light traveled across their skin where they touched. It felt warm, alive, like two heartbeats finding the same rhythm. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet," he said softly. "You might regret bringing a human into your world." She smiled faintly. "I doubt that." The next morning, the valley was quiet and bright. The air smelled of dew and iron dust. Ethan carried a small pack tools, maps, and a worn photograph of Earth he kept from his younger days. Lyra waited near the ridge, her cloak fluttering in the breeze. When she saw him, she smiled. "You're early." "Couldn't sleep," he said. Neither spoke much as they walked to the waiting transport hidden between two large boulders. It was an older model, half Velari in design, with smooth silver plating and curved edges that shimmered faintly in the light. Inside, the ship was quiet. The controls glowed softly beneath Lyra's hands as she guided it upward. As they rose through the clouds, Ethan looked down one last time. The colony grew smaller until it became only a dot among endless plains. "Do you think we'll ever come back?" he asked. Lyra looked at the horizon. "Maybe, but if we succeed, the next time we return, it will not be as strangers." The ship broke through the cloud layer, entering the upper atmosphere. Stars spread out like a sea of light. For a moment, everything was silent except for the low hum of the engines. Ethan watched her from the corner of his eye. The faint glow of her markings illuminated the cockpit. She looked peaceful, yet her expression carried a quiet determination. "You miss him, don't you?" he asked gently. She nodded. "Every day. But I've learned something since he died. That loss doesn't have to end love. It can teach it new shapes." He didn't know what to say. He simply nodded. "He'd be proud of what you've done." Lyra's eyes softened. "And he would have liked you." That made Ethan smile. "I hope so." They sat in silence for a while as the stars drifted past. Then, suddenly, the ship trembled. A warning light flashed. "What is it?" Ethan asked quickly. "Energy interference," Lyra said, checking the controls. "Residual fissure energy. The link is reacting to it." Ethan felt a strange pull inside his chest, a pulse that matched the ship's hum. His vision blurred for a moment, then cleared. "It's connected to us?" "Yes," she said. "The link stabilizes everything around us. It senses danger before we do." After a tense moment, the shaking stopped. The ship continued smoothly through the void. Lyra looked over her shoulder, concern fading into relief. "It's adjusting. The balance between us is stronger now." Ethan smiled faintly. "Guess we make a good team," Lyra nodded. "Yes, we do." Hours later, as they approached the faint blue glow of the Velari homeworld, Ethan felt something shift inside him. He realized this wasn't just a mission or duty, it was a new beginning. The planet below looked beautiful, with oceans that shimmered like glass and vast silver forests that caught the light of the twin suns. Lyra turned toward him and said softly,
"How?"
"They will ask you why you came. Tell them the truth." He tilted his head. "And what truth is that?" "That a human helped save a world, not because he had to, but because he chose to." Ethan smiled slowly. "I can do that." Ship entered the atmosphere, flames of re-entry tracing bright arcs across the sky. Inside the cockpit, Lyra and Ethan sat side by side, silent but connected in ways beyond words. When the ship finally descended toward the shining cities of her world, Lyra reached out once more, placing her hand gently over his. "This is the request that changed everything," she whispered. Ethan looked at her and replied softly, "No, Lyra, you were." Outside, the stars dimmed as dawn rose over the alien horizon, and for the first time in years, both human and Velari light shared the same sky. It was not the end of a story, but the beginning of a new chapter, one born from trust, courage, and the